believes in never giving up. When people say, so what do you do? I look at them, I go, I make mistakes because I always learn more from mistakes than I do from success. Now, I'm not perfect and I've made a million mistakes.
What kind of principles or values did your parents raise in you?
I am never happier than my saddest child. My name was Igor, but I didn't respect my teachers, the school. I was always in trouble. I started making money. I started working at 14, selling women's shoes. Like everything was about making money, making money. Your spouse will make you or break you. He said, remember that always.
In your case, your mentor is opposite side. It's very interesting.
So we sold everything and we walked away with $26 million in equity. Nobody hated me.
Sometimes the people are not ready for this information. First of all, I'm really happy to see you here today. And before we start, I also want to introduce myself to our audience. My name is Katrin Grinn, and for the last 2 years, I have been working as a mentor in social media. And I help experts and entrepreneurs make money by selling online products. And I truly believe that every person has their own authentic experience and unique story. And I teach people how to turn the knowledges, okay, in digital product. And of course, I help to sell it, and we earn a lot of money in different industries. And for me, especially, I think it's a future, and it's very interesting. And all my money for last 2 years, I make only from online business. We make a content strategy, and of course, we learn how to sales their products that we create. Okay, and we receive a nice income because we didn't develop something. We didn't have employers. We just make online products, and their income is very high. Now my mission is like a mother of 3 kids. It's very simple to help people to create the freedom, to make an income, and to have opportunity to work from anywhere in the world. And I think Instagram is very quickly platform that can you help to create all this freedom, and money. How you would like to introduce yourself to someone who doesn't know who you are? Maybe
Right.
my audience, how you want to introduce yourself?
All right. Who am I? Right. So it's interesting. It's a great question. So if I'm going to introduce myself, I would say I'm someone that, you know, believes in never giving up. So somebody who will always, overcome challenges in life, right? So I believe that certain people have stories, right, in their mind. They're always speaking and in their head all these stories. And unfortunately, most people, their stories are filled with what, we call them self-limiting beliefs, or, they're not good enough stories. I'm someone that I'd say from the age of about 5, 6 years old, I always believed that I can overcome, right? No matter what, I can overcome. Maybe it's my background, my history, my immigration from Ukraine, Russia, things of that nature. But at my core, I'm a problem solver. I'm a builder. I believe that I will always find a way. Every challenge is an opportunity. Um, when people ask me what I do and they meet me in public, I never say that I'm a serial entrepreneur, or I run multiple businesses, or I'm a father. I usually say, it's funny when people say, so what do you do? I look at them, I go, I make mistakes. Right. And they go, well, what do you mean? I go, I make mistakes. And they go, but what do you do? What do you do for a living? I go, I make mistakes because I always learn more from mistakes than I do from success. The difference with me is I tend not to repeat my mistakes. Right. So that's who I am at my core, meaning I always reflect what worked, what didn't. Right. How do I change? Why do I do this? Because my story is that I can overcome and I can always go another level and go another level. And that's the main difference of who I think I am when I look and reflect, opposed to most people who will always have a story and commit mistakes and never learn from those stories. They'll just repeat themselves and repeat it, right? And I can break it down
Yes.
to as simple as business, relationships, family, and everything. Now, I'm not perfect and I've made a million mistakes, but most people, like I'll give you a small example. My brother, he's 4 or 5 years older than me, same family, same history, same immigration, yada yada. And when he was 24 years old, he was married. He married a fresh Russian immigrant. She was a doctor, and they were married for 4 years. And she ended up cheating on him, believe it or not. She at the hospital with another doctor. So
Uh-huh.
4 years ago, 4 years after their marriage, he got a divorce. My brother, I know my brother deep inside. And if you ask him if you could do anything and know it would be successful, what would you do? He would say, get married and have a family. Okay. But yet
Uh-huh.
it's now 30 years later, literally 30 years later, because he's 4 years older than me. And he has no family. He lives alone. And to be honest, he treats women very poorly. Why? Because he thinks they're all liars. They're all cheaters, right? He thinks now and everything he sees is this way. Oh, my
Because he
friends.
has the past experience not good. Yes.
Exactly.
Uh, Tell us about your childhood. What kind of principles or values did your parents raise in you?
Yeah.
I
No,
know
exactly.
I know you arrived in Miami when you was very small, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. But see, in my brother's world, at his core, who are you? How do you describe yourself? He's never learned from that mistake, and he still believes that women are no good. But he's had many great girlfriends, and he's destroyed those relationships. So he's his sabotage. That's it. So where me, at my core, who am I? I'm someone that will always reflect, make mistakes, and learn from mistakes. And just to finish my introduction, today that's led me into being a serial entrepreneur. I run many companies. I've insured $4 billion of real estate. I've exited three $30 million companies. I mentor, I coach, I'm a father, right? But I will tell you this, and then I'll leave it with this, because yes, I have a successful track record in business and I continue to grow. And today I'm building my biggest company I ever have. But at the end of the day, I am never happier than my saddest child. So just keep that in mind. And I think any parent will always say that. I don't care how successful I've been. I am never happier than my saddest child.
Interesting. Tell us about your something interesting, maybe principles or
Of course.
values, how
Yeah.
your parents raised in it. Yeah,
So my childhood, my roots, my great grandparents are from Odessa, Ukraine. And then when my parents got married in from the Ukraine, of course, they moved to Moscow. This is 1940s, okay, World War
yeah,
II. They moved to Moscow after they got married. You know, it's like for me, it's like going from Miami to New York, right? Because they went to get a job and work and everything in the industries. And I was born in Moscow, but again, we're Jewish, so that was never a very good thing, you know, under communism and things like that. So we immigrated to Russia. Well, let me step back. I am my grandfather. My grandfather, when my mother had two brothers, and her and my grandfather and my grandma, Sonia and Yefim, and they're all from Ukraine, but then they relocated to Moscow. He had a little shop in the subway of Moscow, right? It was like a dress shop, and of course he worked for the government, my grandfather, and he immediately, you know, had about 30 women making sweaters on the side. And in the government store, he was selling things on the side. So the point is he was a big black marketer in Moscow, right? So believe it or not, we did well when we were in communism because he was always bribing, selling on the side. He was doing this. He got his son to become the head of the furring company. He got my mom into the hospital chemical engineer job, this paying. You know, my mother was born in jail because of my grandfather. I could tell you crazy stories, but believe it or not, he was the king of in Russia, you can't have a business. So you're either in the black market or you're not, right? And that's what it is. But we had a good life. We used to go to the Black Sea every summer, right? Things like that. But then my father was married my mother. And in 1975, he told my grandfather, we want to move to Israel, right? That was it. And everyone's like, no way, we're not going. We have a good life here because my grandfather knows how to hustle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because everybody is running from bad life, and you have actually nice life.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I mean, listen, it wasn't beautiful. My mother was born in jail, right? Like there was stories of this and
Uh,
during the wars. But long story short, is he convinced my grandfather to move. We moved here with zero. We first went to Austria, then Italy. And then when we were in Italy, I was 5. The US government approached us. Long story short, we ended up in New York, in Brooklyn. That's where we ended up. But we didn't stay there long because it was crime. My father didn't like it. My grandfather didn't like it. And we ended up in Michigan, believe it or not, which is outside of Detroit, because my father's a mechanical engineer and my mother is a chemical engineer. And they put us into a religious Jewish community, Chabad. And my grandfather, who had no language except Russian and Yiddish and some Ukrainian, right? He went back to being a tailor because that was his original thing. So he did for all the Jewish people. Yeah. But eventually, there's some cool stories where my father was working at a gas station and he saw a Russian engineering manual for mining equipment in the back seat of a car. This is when it was full service gas. And he saw it, learning the language. And the guy goes, do you know what that is? He said, yeah. He goes, that's a Russian mining equipment manual. He goes, do you know how to read it? He said, yeah, I can read it. He goes, can you translate this for me? So they exchanged numbers. And one day I came home and my mother and father had typewriters and they were translating a Russian engineering mining equipment. So long story short, that was General Electric. And my father, since he was an engineer, started translating pages. They learned the language quickly and he got a job for General Electric in Ingersoll Rand in Detroit. That's how we started, right? Crazy, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Very
So,
interesting.
yeah. So we started that way, immigrants. We're all living in one house. And then I was going to school. My name was Igor, right? Back then. So, yeah,
Interesting to
yeah.
know.
So I was
Yeah.
Igor. And when I was around 7, 8 years old, I was in second, third grade in Michigan. And they put me first in a religious school, which is, they thought I was going to be a rabbi. Then they pulled me out, right? Because they didn't know any better because we couldn't be Jews in Russia, right? So
Uh,
they pulled me out, but I was in third grade and I was teased. I was heavily teased. I didn't have the language well because my name was Igor. Igor is a monster in America, right? From Hunchback of
mhm.
Notre Dame, from Frankenstein. So we had a birthday party for me and it was my first. My dad made some money, all this stuff, and it was at a pizza place with a bowling alley. I invited like 18 kids. 2 kids came to my birthday party. Two
Hmm.
kids. Yeah. So for me, I think that was my first failure in life, right? And because
Yeah,
that was it. Yeah. So I was sad.
especially
I
for
remember on
kids.
Monday, I brought all the
Especially
little
for kids.
gifts. Yeah, for kids. 2 people came, right? And my dad spent money. They didn't have any money. My mom, this, my brother. So I think that moment, from that moment in my life, I said something in my mind. I said, from now on, my birthday parties will be full. That's it. I don't know what happened, what clicked. My name, a week later, my dad saw I was crying, was changed to Jerry. Don't ask me why, but I know why. Because the president of America was Gerald Ford back then. So they named me Gerald instead of Egan because they said, okay, we're in America. Now name him for the president, right? That's how I got the name Jerry.
Next
So
level. Next level.
uh, so, but there's some mistakes because his name is Gerald and I'm Jerry, but that's another story. Okay, but it's funny. So, long story is that was my first failure, and I'll tell you, I could have shut down. I could have been an introvert. I could have never went out again. I could have, got 5 cats and dogs and never made a friend. Right. So
Yeah.
that. There's a certain mystery there of why did I choose that way. So from that moment on, that's it. I became the class clown. I started, going on the sports teams. By middle school, I was throwing parties. I was doing this. I was doing this. I became the guy that needed attention, that needed
You became a
friends.
leader. Yeah.
Yeah. But my insecurity drove me, right? Because I wanted friends. I wanted to be liked. And I will tell you this, it's still here today. I need
Mhm.
to be liked. It's one of my main drivers, right? And it works for me and it works against me in many ways in my life, right? So, and that's what's happened. By the time I was in high school, I started groups. I threw parties. Threw parties and sold beer. I started a group of gangs with guys and women. Like I was the guy that you called on Friday to say, "Where's the party?" Right? And that's what happened. But I didn't respect my teachers, the school. I was always in trouble, right? I started working and balleting. I started making money. I started working at 14 selling women's shoes. Like everything was about making money, making money. And I had something in my room. Back then, this was the late 80s. It said early 90s. I had a sign in America back then. This is when credit cards were invented in America. Madonna, all that stuff. I had a sign in my room that said, "The one man with the most toys wins life." And on the picture was a private jet, a Rolls Royce, a mansion. So I don't know, because we lived in a very wealthy neighborhood. My parents were smart enough to rent an apartment in a wealthy neighborhood, and mostly Jewish, but not half not. And whatchamacallit, but I couldn't do what my friends were doing. They were taking ski vacations and trips and traveling to Disney World, where my parents would, for 1 year, we would go on a station wagon in the car to Disney World. We could stay for one day, right? So I was always that. So
In
I
nice
knew I had,
env in
yeah,
nice environment.
but I didn't have what they had. So I always came up with a way to make money, right? I sold beer, I sold t-shirts, I did all of these things. And so to this day, that was my story. And eventually I got in a lot of trouble in high school. I started selling marijuana. I did all of these things, right? Because I needed the money to keep up. But when I was about 18 years old, I always had a line in my life with my upbringing. My parents were very strong. They were partners. They worked on everything together. Everything was their family, their children, everything. My dad was very strict and my mother was very loving. So long story short, they were like, "Jerry's got to get out of Michigan or he's going to get trouble." Because I have Russian friends now and immigrants that were there. Some of them went too far trying to make money. They did wrong things. And my parents, I always had a line, didn't draw the line, right? So long story short is they got me out of school and they sent me to University of Miami. And then I got, my first semester in University of Miami, I got thrown out because I threw a party with beer and charged $25.
Jerry.
Yeah. So,
You opened a
yeah.
new side.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
But I didn't. So that's what introduced me to Florida, right? But I didn't want to go back. So I found a small private school here in Florida, and it was called Northwood University, and they took me. The long story short, it was a school for automotive marketing. So the kids of dealerships were being there, and they taught sales and how to sell cars. It was small, 10 people in a classroom, right? But I stayed in Florida. That's all I cared about, right? And I was still throwing parties, selling pot, doing all this stuff, right? Just to keep up with everything. And long story short is I met a professor, and I think that professor changed my life, right? He kept saying to me, he called me Katz, Katz. It's like, "Katz, what's wrong with you? Why you get 75% on all your tests? Why you get this?" I go, I didn't care. I was making money and doing whatever I had to stay in school, right? Because they helped me with a scholarship a little bit. And he said, "You're bigger than this." But at that moment, he told me two things, right? That because he took me to his work and he was the sales manager for 5 car dealerships. So he says he had a Cadillac. He took me to work and I spent 2 days with him. And he told me two things that I remember today. Number one, the most important decision in your life is your spouse. He said, "Your spouse will make you or break you." He said, "Remember that always. If they think like you and they uplift you, you will, everything is fine. If they're opposite or negative or whatever," he goes, "they will destroy anything that you do." So,
Mhm.
first decision, your spouse makes you or breaks you. Second decision, he had worked for this company, Auto Nation, for 27 years. They gave him a salary, benefits, health insurance. They gave him all this stuff, a 401k. So he had security and he never left. He was there that long and he got married, had 3 kids. And he said, "If you want to be big, if you want to make it big in life and change financial freedom, wealth. He goes, don't stay at a company that gives you what they call golden handcuffs that you
Yeah,
can't
it's
leave.
true. Hmm.
Yeah. So he said,
Okay.
don't make my mistake. Go and build your own thing, you know, as soon as you can after you learn a little bit. So
It's very interesting, because usually the people who work on somebody, they try to continue their role model. And in your case, your mentor is opposite side. It's very interesting. Wow.
yeah. So again, like it's just strange. But the funny story is this from there. So whatever. He really he changed how I thought, and I started studying and learning more about sales, marketing, entrepreneurship, things of that nature. So that when I finished school, I didn't want to go back to Michigan, right? So I started working here in sales in telecommunications back then. It was the time because I said to myself, how do I make the most amount of money, right, in the quickest amount of time? What should I sell? Right. So some people sold cars, houses, real estate. No. So I chose telecommunications. Why? Because I could walk in, it's a contract, right? I walk into a business, I knock on the door and say, hey, how much are you paying on your phone? $1,000. I said, my company's $500. Sign here, I make money. That's it. Right.
Uh-huh.
Other people were selling copiers. And so that's what I learned is the sales cycle. How long from day one to day two to get paid? So I don't want to sell real estate. People make money, but that cycle's a year, and you're only as good as your last sale. In the in telecommunications, the contracts pay you every month. When you sell one, it's a year, right? So I learned a couple things like that. But long story, the funny part is, my friend Mike from high school moved to New York. He comes to Florida. I was living in Palm Beach this time, West Palm, and he shows up. He's 23 years old in a Ferrari, right? A red Ferrari. I go, what? What's going on? Where'd you get this Ferrari? He goes, well, I live in New York. I work at a company called Stratton Oakmont Securities for a guy named Jordan Belfort. I'm on Wall Street. And I go, Jordan Belfort, yeah. So today we know Jordan Belfort as the Wolf of Wall Street. So
Oh my God.
that's it. He worked for him. He was 23 years old. He had a Ferrari. Okay. So in 3 weeks, I moved to New York
But
because
it's very really good that you very quick react. You have a very quick reaction for opportunities. It's like, oh, it's a sign, and you take it. It's nice because I'm the same. I'm in woman, but it's very close that your mindset. I like it.
no, I
Nice.
mean,
Okay.
you're right, because if you don't act, right, like people will get lost in their head, like my brother, right?
Yeah.
They're stuck. They're stuck over analyzing, overthinking. They're scared, right? They look at what's not working. But for me, I
Yeah.
was like, I saw my friend, he's 23 years old, he's got a Ferrari, he's
Somebody
doing
have a
this. I'm like,
Ferrari. You have also chance to have a Ferrari. Yeah.
right. That's it. Moved to New York. So I started working. I worked under the Wolf of Wall Street. I got my license. I did all that good stuff. And I learned from him. And all I learned was sales. So he taught us to pick up the phone and call high net worth people, people with money, right? And ask them for $1 million on the phone. That's how we used to do it. This is the 90s. And if I ask them for $1 million, they would send me 100,000. And we made 5%. That was it, $5,000 on a phone call, right? Because we only called rich people. That was it. So, long story short, is I learned under him for about 9 months. And by the way, the movie is 100% correct. Everything that went on in the movie Wolf of Wall Street with the parties, the drugs, it's out of control. I was there for 9 months, but I was living in Long Island. I didn't want to live in Long Island. So, what did I do? I moved to the city, Manhattan, and I went to work for Lehman Brothers, which is gone today, right? Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, they were destroyed in the global financial crisis. I was at Lehman, which is one of the biggest investment banks in the country, but they were the same. They did the same exact things. And I was told that I stop being an analyst. Don't try to pick stocks. And this was the .com bubble. This was AOL. This was Yahoo, Netscape. This is all the .com and the financials. So I learned about how money works in the world. And I learned about debt and equity and stocks and bonds and global markets and currencies and government. So, but I was taught to be like a bookie, right? Jerry, stop thinking which stock is good. You sell the one that makes you the most money. And I never believed them, but they were right because I would sell Disney, and it would go down. And then they would yell at me that they didn't buy Intel. Okay. That's how it was. But it didn't matter because it was unregulated and we were making 5 to 7%. So I learned all about cycles, the economy, sales, and I only sold to the rich. So today, what I would say, the big learning is if you're going to open a business today, do you know how hard it is to sell to poor people? You have to sell a $50 item or a $100 item, right? And that could be half the money in their bank, right? And think about how many you have to sell: 1,000 items, 10,000 items. So you're competing with Amazon,
Yeah, it's true.
right? So you're
Hmm.
not Amazon. But if I sell to rich people that can send me $100,000 because I fixed their problems, right? I make bail $10,000 and I can do it with one or two, three people. So that's what
Okay.
I learned there. Right. So
It was your first big money that you earned in New York.
correct. Yeah. So it
Wow.
was the tech
How
bubble. Yeah.
how it was? You remember this feeling? Because I remember my feeling when I earned my first big money. It was very
Yeah.
exciting.
No, you want to know what happened with me? So I was working at
Yes.
Wolf of Wall Street. I made an $18,000 commission check in 1 month. Right. And you know what he did? He took me right to the Rolex store and he made me spend $14,000. Yeah.
I'm saying the same. Yeah, is there, and, I think it's a cycle for every people that earn the first money to
Yeah.
buy their Rolex like artifact,
He,
heavy
yeah.
artifact.
It was crazy, but it was worse. He drove me to the store and he told me if I didn't, my check was like 18,000. The Rolex was like 14,000, right? He said if I didn't buy it, I was fired. Because what he taught me back then is pressure is what I need, right?
Hmm.
So my rent was like $1,500, right? And I had no money. I was broke. I was working for 9 months, making $500, and I sold my car in Michigan just so I'm in Florida, so I could live there. And that was it. And by the way, my second commission check that was about $15,000. He walked me into the Porsche dealership, and he said, "If I don't buy a Porsche, I'm fired."
Wow.
Yeah. So the theory was this, right? That they believed in. This is back in the 90s. That how do you take, how do you make a diamond? You take a piece of coal and you put
Hmm.
pressure. And if the pressure turns you to a diamond. So again, today, what does that do for me? It allows me to take risk. So if I make $1 million and I have $1 million in the bank and I want to make $5 million, what I learned is I'm not afraid to spend the whole $1 million to make five, right? Because that
Hmm.
pressure, right,
Make
shows me
you to do a new steps. You mean,
correct,
or think
correct,
another way?
right. Because think about it, most people get stuck, right? Like the guy who was my teacher, he's stuck. He's afraid. Don't forget, I was also single. I wasn't married. I had no kids, right? And so I did it. So if I that was a big concept for me, right? Don't be afraid to invest it all, right? Because and what happened is I learned that I can make it, right? And I was broke 2 months later, but I had a Rolex and I had a Porsche. And then all of a sudden that month, I would work 50, 60, 70 hours till 10 p.m. at night. I would call California, rich doctors, and I made it back, right? And I made it
Because
all back.
if you make once, you know the system. But very important to believe in yourself. It's like me in a crisis when it was coronavirus. Okay, I
Right.
lost all my business in HR, and I remember
Wow.
this situation. I'm sitting in my BMW, okay, and I'm crying and I'm thinking, wow, my God, for 5 minutes, and after I decided how I make it once, and to repeat it, and I make X 2, 3 for a couple of months.
Right. So then you're very similar, right? You learn from failure. You learn from
Mhm.
mistake. My brother never came back from failure. right? And now he's 58 and he doesn't have his dream, which is a wife and a family to this
Mhm.
day. And that's what he does. And that's so I can give you more examples. So that's a big mindset lesson. But see, what I've learned is I can't teach that mindset. And I'll ask you this question, Katya. Are people like this, are they born or are they made? I'm asked that question a lot. Like your mindset of you lost everything, but now whatever. Of course, you went through the pain. It's not easy. I get it. We all been there. Not all of us, but you came back. So you're an entrepreneur. You're a leader. Your mindset. Where did you get that? People ask me all the time.
It's
Are
ambition. I
leaders
don't know. It's
born or are
ambition.
they made? Yeah.
And what you think about you? You are was born with this skill, or you during your way you built it?
I mean, I built the skill sets, but the
Uh-huh.
mindset of never give up, I believe in confidence, right? If I could give a gift to my children, any gift, it would be confidence. And if you break down the root word of confidence, it's confide. So confide in English means to trust in yourself. To
Okay.
trust, confide, confidence. So my youngest son is an overthinker, right? My
Uh-huh.
oldest is not. He doesn't give a crap. He'll go talk to 5 girls, doesn't matter. He'll go jump in the ocean, sharks. He jumps off a mountain and skis. My other son, handsome, good looking, smart, good grades. He's college, but he overthinks and he's aware. Him and I talk about this. And I asked him things like, if you could stop one thing, a habit that you have, what would you do? I ask questions like that today because I'm a better father today. I'm more of a coach. um, he says, I would stop overthinking. So he sees 4 beautiful girls. He's in college and at a restaurant, bar, whatever it is, he's thinking, boom, boom, boom. Me? No way. I'm already there. Like, I don't even think. Just like, you know what I mean? I just go. Right. And my other son is like that.
More experience. You have more experience.
But I
Uh,
think it's the confidence, right?
Confidence. Yeah.
So, but where does confidence come from? Yes, it comes from winning over time, right? More wins are compounding. But why at 6 years old did Jerry decide to always have his birthday parties full? Where I could have been the opposite, right? So it's very difficult question, but I think it could have been some kind of influence because at a young age you're influenced. I could have watched a movie that same night, right? Literally, this I think about this about somebody who was like Rudy. There's a movie about football with a kid and he wanted to be on Notre Dame. Maybe I watched it that day and I say, okay, failure is okay. That's where you learn. And now this guy in the movie, he made it, right? So, literally at a child's level, maybe that's what it was. But I think they're born, to be honest. I think it's in your genetics and your roots, right? Like, I know you live in Israel, but why are so many Jewish people successful? Because they tried to kill us for 2,000 years, right?
Yes. They know. They
And
know how to survive.
right. But when you try to kill off people for 2,000 years, whoever is left is a survivor, right? So
Yeah.
they did this to us, right?
Very interesting. And after New York, you moved to Miami.
Yeah. So then, okay. So that story there is, to make it short, is I made about $2 million. That was my first time I made $2 million. And then I bought a condo on the Upper East Side for a 1 bedroom for about $180,000. I was maybe 27, 28, whatever it was at that time. 29. I had $5,000 suits. I did all this stuff, right? And I was living in Manhattan. It was fun. It was
A
great
rich,
life.
a rich life.
Yeah. Well, at
Rich life.
27, but like my buddy had a Ferrari, right? By the way, that guy with the Ferrari, he's not alive today. He didn't make it through that period. Very much like the movie. But long story short is when 2000 came, I learned about cycles, the economy and everything. That's when all the internet stocks went from 10 to 1,000. So I was buying the stocks. I was in the stock market. My clients were in the stock market. Today we have AI, we have crypto. We had mortgages. There's always a way that Wall Street extorts. So we were pitching stocks like Webvan. I was using a 56K modem. We didn't have iPhones, right? And the stocks would go from 0 to 100 Webvan is like Grubhub or Instacart. Well, that doesn't exist in 2000 because if you don't have this or cloud. So what I learned is the stock market is 10 years ahead, and the stock market went so much up. Everybody made a fortune. I made $2 million, but I had all my money in the market and I was using leverage. I was borrowing margin. And in 6 weeks, AOL, which was only mail, everyone thought it was like Amazon. We didn't understand. Went from $110 to zero in 6 weeks. I lost everything in
My
6 weeks. Yeah. So I
God.
lost everything. I was working 8, 9 years at this point. I lost everything in 6 weeks. And I actually owed Wall Street $60,000. So I called my real estate broker and I said, I don't have any money. Broke. 6 weeks. Couldn't sleep. And she said, I said, what's your apartment worth? And I asked her, she said, it's about $300,000. And I owed about 180. So I sold it. I paid Wall Street 60,000. And at that point, again, another massive failure. Now it's around 2001, right before 9/11. I sold my condo and I said, that's it. I'm not doing this. You want to know why? Not only because I lost all my money, but I also lost all my clients' money. So let's go back to my little kid. Nobody liked me. They all hated me, no matter how much money I had. It didn't matter. So, so what I found out is like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not gonna work for 6, 7, 8 years about me, money, 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 me. And then I destroyed all my clients. I destroyed myself. Wall Street. I learned what they do and the cycles and the economy and interest rates and everything. And I said, that's it. So during that time, I made friends with one of my clients, a guy named Ben Schulman. He had 25 karate schools and he bought real estate in Harlem. I had a Harley Davidson. He was my client, but he only had 10% of his money in the stock market with me. He was Ben
Mhm.
Schulman, great guy. He came to my wedding later. He passed today. God bless him. And he and me, we used to ride motorcycles into Harlem, and he showed me how he bought buildings and converted them to low income housing, Section 8, right? So when I
Okay.
moved to Florida in 2001 and I was broke, he lost some money too, but this guy had apartment buildings, schools, and this, and a family, and a house. He said, Jerry, move to Miami. Why? He goes, it's going to be good for 25 years. And he told me why. People are moving, immigration, the politics, everything. And he showed me how to buy real estate. So he helped me, he mentored me, and he also helped me with some money, showed me how to do it. And I moved to Miami in 2001 and I started doing this, right? So I know we don't have a lot of time. So from 2001, I bought my first fourplex in South Beach
Mhm.
for with $10,000 out of my pocket. He loaned me some money and he showed me how to use what we call hard money, 12% interest. And I bought it for 140,000. I moved in, I fixed it with a Home Depot credit card. I had no money, right? And then within 12 months, I sold it for 180,000 and I made $40,000, right? So this began my real estate career. So, but from 2001 to 2008, I ended up buying real estate, fix and flips, investing. I learned banking, the networks, the realtors. Two mentors approached me 2 years in who were about 65 years old. They owned a company called Investors Realty and Old Florida Mortgage. And they liked me because I was buying properties from them. And they asked to partner with me because I was the operator. I was the guy on the street, right? Doing all the work. They were the network, right? This is before Zillow and all this stuff. So they partnered with me. And between 2001 and 2008, we touched over $350 million worth of real estate. And we sold almost everything in 2007 and 2008. I did condo conversions. I did industrial, retail, everything. And we sold everything to end of 2007, 2008, except for around 30% of the portfolio. Why? Because at that time, mortgages, that was the global financial crisis. Mortgages, first it was tech stocks and .com. Then it was mortgages for Wall Street. Anybody could get a mortgage. There was strippers getting mortgages, right? With 1% down. It was this huge thing. It's called the global financial crisis. So we were converting old buildings, selling them as condo, buy them 40, sell them for 80. So we sold everything and we walked away with $26 million in equity, three of us, right? And I was like, yeah, right? Like I was back. And guess what? Nobody hated me. I was providing housing.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
choose. the industry that is not like Wall Street, you
No.
know.
And I was building networks of a good reputation, of a guy who does what he says he does. Integrity. I did this, I built that, I borrowed this, and I just kept marching. And then the smartest people around me, the mentors, wanted to partner with me because of my integrity, because I did, because of execution. People talk and other people do, right? That's the big difference, right? Like, I can't tell you how many dreamers there are, but I did it. And when they saw I was an operator, and then I did everything I said I was going to do, relentlessly, never gave up because there was problems. There was a building that burned down. There was police. There was Section 8, low income. I was standing in septic tanks with poop, right? I was fixing toilets. I was doing everything. So, but I never gave up, right? Never gave up. So again, I had two mentors, three, Ben, who showed me the way. So during that time, I also opened an insurance agency, which I'm scaling today because I fixed my problem for insurance in that world. So, and I also understood recurring revenue. So if you're selling a house and you're a realtor, you're only as good as the next house, right?
Yes,
Right. If you sell cars. So what I understand today, so what I also learned that during that world is recurring revenue. So I could sell anything, right? Right? In a business. But what I learned is the top 1% of the entire world, they don't rely on an income to become wealthy. They rely on the sale of something, which in America we call it, or in Israel or everywhere, it's called capital gains. So the top 1% of tax returns in the United States are always capital gains. They're not income based. So if you're an employee or you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're making W 2 income and you're taxed. If you make over $150,000 a year, you're taxed at 45, 50%, right? In Europe, it's worse. But in the world of business, if you buy a house for $250,000 and you sell it for 350,000, you're paying 18% tax, capital gains. It's the lowest,
you
right?
know, in
So
Israel it's the same. We need to pay the tax when you sell, when you buy, and if your property is more than one
correct.
very high, very you need to pay extra. You know, it's like rich people
Right.
because they're rich.
No, so what I learned is recurring revenue. So today I do no business and no job unless I can sell my business. When I worked on Wall Street, I didn't build anything. I couldn't sell it.
Yes,
If you're a realtor selling houses, you're a real estate agent, you don't have anything. So today, but now if I accumulate 500 apartments, right? And over 10 years my rents go up, I've accumulated 50 million, $100 million in assets that I can hand to my kids, right?
yes,
And now I own an
right.
insurance company, right? Insurance, you have insurance, you pay every month, right?
Of course,
So,
we have.
right,
ins- Yeah.
you have
Health
insurance and
insurance.
everything.
I now I bought one new apartment. I didn't receive yet the key, but I already paid the insurance.
That's right. So so those businesses that somebody I have 100 friends, they all pay car insurance and they pay every single month. Those businesses become assets. They grow, 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 grow. And today I can sell my insurance company for $18 million.
Hmm.
Because why? Because they're annual contracts. You understand? So
It's
I
like
learned,
you learn
yeah,
from the your first work. Yeah,
right, because I lost everything in 6 weeks, right?
yeah.
Because so today I will not do any business that has not recurring revenue, meaning people have to pay every single month and it has to have a minimum of a year contract. And that's it, because those assets, and by the way, when you sell your business, those businesses get the highest prices all the time, right? If you own a great restaurant and you're in business for 5 years, you can't sell it. Very difficult. Now, if you have a restaurant that's been in business for 50 years with a reputation, yeah. So I learned those kind of things. But along the way, by the way, I met my first wife, Fran. She was half Cuban, half from New York. They call them Jubans in Miami, right? I had two children and things of that nature. And she became the back end of she was a career school teacher. And I met her in a parking garage. It was funny in my office building, and we had two kids. She was a great wife. We were very aligned. She became the back end of my business in real estate. She was very detail oriented. I am not detail oriented. She did the books, she did that. We had two boys, Alex and Max. My mother moved down from my parents got divorced at a certain point. My dad went back to Russia, found himself a wife in Riga, but that's another story for another day. Yeah. So I moved my mother down when I had my kids, and then we slowly moved up. So we went from Miami to Surfside, and then we our first house was Sunny Isles, of course, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So we bought in
Okay.
Sunny Isles, yeah, and then I moved my mother down when I had my first son, Alex, Sasha, and, we started that. So, during that period, I met a Serbian guy, Goran Dragazlevic. He was a competitor of mine. We were buying properties from each other and competing, and we he said, "Let me have lunch with you." So I had lunch with him, and we spent 2 hours at the lunch. We're both immigrants, very similar stories, and we became very good friends because he was my competitor. He said, "Don't buy this, I buy this. Don't bid up the properties." Jerry, that's how he talks. Everything is wonderful. So today he's one of my best friends and a mentor. He owns over 2,000 apartments, right? 500 houses. And he brought me into a
It's
group
for
called
living or commercial apartment?
he rents some houses, rents houses, like single family houses. He's got he's got he's probably got $350 million in real estate. Like, he's 65, he's 10 years more, 13 years older than me. Great guy, family, 3 kids, everything. So he was one of my mentors also, right? And he brought me into an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. I didn't know what it was, right? And I go, "What's EO?" And there's an EO Israel, there's EO in 58 countries. It's an underground organization called Entrepreneurs Organization, and it engages leading entrepreneurs to learn and grow from each other, right? But the key is you have to share your same values, right? So if you want to be the richest person in the world, they don't want you. No,
Ah, really?
they want, yeah, that's not what it's about. So what it's about is, you thirst for learning. You're a person who always wants to learn and grow. Number 2, you wanna give back to the community. Number 3, you wanna leave a legacy. Number 4, you only operate with integrity and values. Period, end of
Okay.
story. So, yeah, and what happens is I was brought into EO. You have to have at least, $1,000,000 in revenue. You have to have a business. Then what they do is they come to your business, they come to your house, they check your money, your financials, they check your background, they check everything, and then at
Oh,
the end,
serious?
yeah. And then at the end, it's like they're screening and vetting you as an entrepreneur because you got to have, back then, you only needed $1,000,000 in revenue, right? And at least 5 employees. Today, you need more, but because of inflation. So at the end, they said, they're basically screening me like, okay, if I like this person this much, they're an entrepreneur, they have a business, they have values, and I can leave my children with them for 6 months, that's how, right? Because they share our value systems and you know exactly what's going to happen in the house. That's it. You're in. That's what Oscar, the president, told me. He goes, "Jerry, at the end of this process, if you never got in trouble, if you never had this, never had this, and I feel comfortable leaving my children with you for 6 months, you're in. And you're an entrepreneur and you want to build, give to the community, and engage
Nice
leading
experience.
entrepreneurs." Yeah.
Mhm.
So, long story short, it changed my life, this organization, because
Ah, really?
we engage leading entrepreneurs to learn and grow from each other. So we have 2 rules: no solicitation, it's not a networking group, right? And number 2, never tell people what to do. So we
Really?
learned, yep,
How to
because
learn
people,
this, to help, because sometimes I speak with somebody, I see the mistakes and I want, to help, but I understand that sometimes the people are not ready for this information and I need to stop. Yeah.
listen, that's very self-aware, right? So with me, the only people that I tell what to do are the people that work for me. That's it.
Yeah.
Why? But don't forget, I've screened them. They're coachable. I don't hire non-coachable people, right? And I show them. But now in the real world, like especially with children, and I've made all these mistakes, right? Telling my kids what to do, telling my ex-wife what to do, because I'm very much like you. I'm very much I could sit with somebody in 15 minutes, I can tell you exactly what's wrong, what's holding those people
Yeah,
back, right?
coach. Yeah.
Right. But see, if like my ex-wife who was Russian, she's like, listen, she's not ready. She's not ready to understand. She believes that all her like I when she makes a decision, she has to ask six of her girlfriends. Really? How could your girlfriend give you advice? It's
Uh-huh.
impossible, right? Every person has a lens in life. Everyone has a different story. So how am I going to ask my brother about relationship, about women? His story is that they're going to cheat on you, right? No. So if you want to have a relationship, you go ask somebody for advice who has a 25-year-old marriage, right? Not my brother. Right. So that's the thing. And what I've learned over time is to only when people ask you something, the only thing you can do, and this is the rule in EO, is share your experience. So somebody comes to me and says, I think my wife is cheating on me, right? Can I need your advice?
Uh-huh.
I have to say things like, listen, I don't know. I can't help you. I've never had my wife cheat on me. But what I would do is I would call these three people, right? Because the bottom
Yeah.
line is how do I know? I'm gonna read from a book, right? I'm not gonna do it. So the point is the more I understand coaching and telling. Like I've had bad experiences with my children, right? My son wanted to drop out of college, this. I told him if you do that, I'm going to take your truck. I bought him a truck, do this. Guess what? He dropped out of college his junior year. He wanted to become a captain of a yacht. And I took his truck, right? So, because that's what my father would have done to me, right? Punished me. Guess what? I lost my son for 2 months. He wouldn't listen to me because he's not 12, right? He's 18, 19, 20. So he took off, right? And he went to his mom's house. I lost him for 2 months. It didn't work. And guess what? He got his captain's license. He went to the school. He did this. He did that. He got a job on a yacht. He did all this kind of stuff. And then I had to call him and apologize. I should have never told him what to do. I should have been more of a coach. With my kids, it's difficult, right? At the office,
Yeah,
it's
I
different.
understand you because I
Yeah.
have two kids now in 10 and 8 years. Wow, it's so difficult not to say what to do and to listen what they think about this situation. And oh, I understand you. Yeah.
Right. But over time, because of EO, I've learned now not to be my father, because my father, I mean, it was crazy, right? If I did one thing, he took my car, he did that, like nothing I did was ever good enough for my father. Today, me and my father are very close, but there was a period after when he divorced my mom, I didn't talk to him for like 7, 8 years. I did talk to him, but I didn't agree with him. Everything that I did wasn't good enough for him. Why you have C's, son? You need A's. Why you do this? And nothing I did was good enough for my father. But then eventually, after I left Wall Street, that's when my parents got divorced. I wasn't at home. I felt like, okay, my dad doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Now I make more money than him. Right. So I was very resentful against him. But what I
Well,
learned from,
I
yeah,
understand why
yeah,
you asked them in the beginning. What is the difference between people that make the results? You and your father. You want to prove to your father that you are you are a best
no,
version. But it is good.
right.
It's playing this game with you. You know.
It does. But so now as a father, right? Because again, this is why self-reflection is so important. I'm a father. I made so many mistakes with my children, right? And guess what? When my father was telling me everything I did wasn't good enough, everything I hated him at one point. I got in a fight with him one time, right? I'd come home, I'd close a deal on Wall Street. He said, "Why wasn't it bigger?" Right? Like nothing ever worked with this guy. So, as a father, as a mother, we don't have a book, right? We don't have a book that says do this. But at the bottom line is all my father really wanted is for me to be a better man than him, right? But when you're 25 or 19 or 16 or 13 and they're telling you nothing you do is good enough, you want to kill them, right? So, and that's exactly why I lost my son for 2 months. My son wouldn't talk to me, right? So I've learned that being a parent, there is no book, right? And I had a moment in my life when I was around 32 and living in Florida, married with the kids. I called my father and I apologized to him. And the only way I came to that realization is because in EO, I had coaches and I had mentors and I had forums. And we sit in confidential settings, in a forum, and we share with each other. If you break confidentiality in this group entrepreneurs organization, they throw you out because you're sharing the top 5% of your life: business, personal, family, and self, right? So I shared with them what was my father's story, and we reflected, and I was coached, and I understood that all he was trying to do is be his best for me, and he doesn't have the book. So I actually wrote a letter and then called him, and I apologized to him for being a jerk son and not respecting him, right? For what he was doing, because all he cared about is to make me a better person. And after that, I finally understood, but I had to be a father first. to yeah, to understand those kind of things. So it's interesting. Like you got to learn from life and all that good stuff, right? But most people don't, Katya. That's the problem, right? So yeah, they just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over and over again, like a circle. And I'd say it's about 95% of the world. They don't get it. I don't know why, but I know one thing about me. I'm not rescuing them anymore because I used to always try. Um, so all right, so what else is my story? So there's that. I ended up getting a divorce with my ex friend. Today we're best friends. She's remarried. She was a great mother, but we were completely different. By the time we were 8, 9, 10 years married, um, she is a safety person, right? She likes safety. I don't like safety, right? So I'm correct. Yeah. So, like, she made me sell my motorcycle, all these things. Listen, she's a wonderful mother, great mother. I couldn't ask for a better partner as a co-parent of my children. My kids are so well balanced. But I remember sitting in a therapy session with her, 2 years in therapy, and what happened is the psychologist back then said, "Listen, you two are good people. You got a business, you got beautiful kids, you got good values. But here's the difference. This guy Jerry, he wants to climb to Mount Everest, right? And you want to stay home, have picnics with the family, read books. This we were opposites, right? And that was it. Even at that point, she knew it. At that point, I sold all my real estate 2008, except for about 20%. I broke from my partners. They retired. They were older then. And then I focused on the insurance company, but I wanted adventure. So we got our honeymoon in Costa Rica, right? Central America. So we live in Miami now. So I loved it. I started taking my kids to learn to surf, speak Spanish, and then I started buying real estate, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to learn how to salsa. Yo puedo hablar en español también. I'm going to learn how to speak Spanish. I'm going to buy real estate. And I bought real estate in Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia. Like I learned this whole different world, right? Of in a whole different culture. I'm Eastern European, right? So what happened is I ended up scaling hotels. They were called the Chocolate Hotel. My first one was in Tamarindo, Costa Rica, 10 units. It was called the Chocolate. Small hotels, boutique, right? And I'm like, why don't we build an owner's suite? Kids can come down. We don't sell our house here. We learn surfing, Spanish, ATVs, like it's adventure, right? Jungle, all this stuff. And she wasn't having it. No, there's no good hospitals. There's no whatever. So I continued to run around and do this, work all the time, and that's what it was. And she was stayed home, and she wouldn't go with me. And then one time my son got hurt surfing, and there's no hospital for an hour. Things like this. So, long story short, we ended up in a divorce, and everything was fine. And by the way, at that point, like, we didn't have a problem with the financials. In fact, we split we didn't sell it, but we split this. I gave her more than I took way less in that divorce than I should have, right? Why? Because I knew that I had to take care of the mother of my children. first, right? And I got the respect from my in-laws, right? And I didn't care. So if I gave her 65, 70%, right, and bought her a house and did this and all that stuff, I'm just going to go out and make 5 times more. That's what I said to myself, right? Because again, I can do it. I know how to do it. So, but I wanted to make sure that my kids, because 50-50 custody, which she didn't want to give me, we fought, that was what we fought over. It wasn't the money. She didn't want to give me 50-50 custody because I knew I had to have my kids living the same lifestyle, right, at her house. And I knew she was going to get remarried or whatever it was. So it wasn't about the money. Um, but she wouldn't give me custody of the kids because she told me I worked too much. Okay. And she was right. And she goes, no way. I'm 70%, you're 30% custody. No way. And it took me a year. My lawyer called me and said, listen, the money's not the problem. You're giving more than that. The problem is she thinks you work too much and you won't take care of the kids. So what I had to do is I had to become super dad. I had to start tracking. So my lawyer said, go to the schools, go to the conferences, go to the sports, go to the teams, go to the this. My kids at this time were like 6 and 9. Okay. Right. And that's what I did. And guess what I found out? My wife was right. I was not there. But when I started going to the schools and seeing the kids and meeting the teachers and Halloween and stuff, I was working, right? I was working all the time. And I figured this is the mother. She takes care of the kids. Bad. And I realized, holy shit, like they were right. So then I became this like super dad. I'll show you a couple signs when from there. I get gifts now from super dad. And I realized, she was right. So about a year in, when I was coming super dad, my son went to my ex-wife and said, we want to be 50% with dad. It's not fair, mom, my older son. And then she called me. She goes, you got it, 50%. That's it. Right. And that, yeah. And that was it. Cause I said to myself, there is no way I'm going to look my children in my face when they're older and say I gave 70% custody. Right. Like what kind of father? Right. No way. So I did it. So this is 2000. So let's call this 2010 approximately, right? And at that point, I still had the insurance business. It was making me some money. I had some real estate, the houses, but my net worth after the divorce, I gave away, right? All this, right? And I will tell you, I was still in EO. I became the president of EO. I got involved in leadership of Entrepreneurs Organization. I got on the board, global board. I think looking back, I thought I was struggling in business to make money, right? Today I reflect, I was learning. So I got on the board of these organizations. I became the learning chair. So I had a budget. I would bring in speakers. I got to pick up Tony Robbins at the airport. I got to pick up the most famous speakers because we had a learning budget that we would bring in Tony Robbins. We would bring in Gary Vanderchuck. We would bring in Christina Comerford, all the authors, all the this. And I became obsessed. Correct. We paid them. Most of them are members. Most of them are EO members. Tony Robbins was an EO member.